Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is This Business, and I'm happy that you are here. Now we'll be switching gears. We'll be moving over to the conversation that we have for today, which is around fake news. Fake news is the devil, is a necessary evil that comes with social media. I mean, a lot of countries have been fighting fake news, from developed world to the emerging economies to the even underdeveloped nations. They have been fighting the issue of fake news, and to the extent that some countries during election, when they want to make serious societal changes in their communities, they simply block the internet. Do you know why they're doing that? Because they want to stop the issue of fake news hampering the progress of whatever change that they want to bring about. Well, to bring more light to this issue and to answer some burning questions in our minds, I'll be saying welcome to Tech Hub, David Ajikobi, the Nigerian editor at Africa Check, who will be joining us virtually. Thanks for joining us on Tech Hub, David.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, the issue of fake news cannot be overemphasized. Before we begin, I want to establish something. I did a poll on Twitter. I wanted to find out, it will be displayed on the screen in a bit. I did a poll on Twitter to find out how people, how people view the issue of fake news and whose responsibility it is to curb fake news. And out of the people that voted, 36.4 people say that it is the responsibility of the media outlets to curb fake news. Nobody said it is a government's responsibility. You can see it there, 0%. Wow, interesting. 54.5% said individuals, you and I, everyday persons, they're responsible for curbing fake news. Well, 9.1% of people said, consign me. We have to talk to those 9% of people that are saying, concern me. Because a lot of people do not realize that fake news at some point will stop on their doorstep. Now, from this poll you have seen, can you give me your reaction? Let us start with that, and other questions will flow in.
Okay, let me start by saying, first and foremost, your poll has just 11 people voted for your poll. Well, I mean, it's pretty much what we see in the ecosystem, where a lot of people believe that the assignment of curbing disinformation and misinformation rests more on the individual, more than, and then you have the media houses, and then perhaps other channels. And it's simple, because the real consumers of disinformation and misinformation are you and I, the individuals. The people who suffer the consequences of misinformation and disinformation are you and I. The people who bear the brunt of disinformation and misinformation, either in terms of crisis, or whatever it is, health misinformation or whatever it is, are people like you and I. You understand? I would say that the media comes next, because, I mean, the most or bulk of the misinformation or disinformation we see is, spread on social media, or media generally, social media, traditional media. So I think that it is very correct that, I agree that, the individual media consumers need to have media literacy skills to actually identify misinformation and misinformation by themselves, because that's then we will now talk about what the journalists should be doing to actually help people, inoculate people against misinformation and disinformation. Because, for example, I'm seeing this, even big media houses get to sometimes.
David, before we go on to give recommendations of what journalists and media outlets, be it traditional or new media, can do to curb fake news, you mentioned two important words in your introduction. You said disinformation and misinformation. And I realized that people really do not understand what that is. Could you break it down for us? Give us, what are the instances, or what do we define or describe as fake news? Is it the same thing as disinformation? Is it the same thing as misinformation? Break it down for us in a few minutes.
So essentially, the buzzword is fake news, right? But if you were to go by the definition of what news is in the first place, if it's fake, it can't be news, because news will contain some accuracy, accuracy balance and things like that. There are certain constructs that a news item must speak. So having said that, um, so we fact checkers like to use the term disinformation and misinformation. So what's the difference between misinformation and disinformation? So misinformation is that if Mr. Shakiru saw something on social media and he is not aware that it is false and shares that information with you, Mrs. Shakiru or somebody else, that is misinformation. The person was not aware that it is false, it was not intentional, because of the, I mean, look at WhatsApp groups, for example, our family WhatsApp groups, our secondary school WhatsApp groups, and different WhatsApp groups. You see that a lot of people share some different stuff and they don't even know that it is misleading, false, or, different things. But if I know that this piece of information is false, or I've manipulated it, or I've done some photo editing, or I've cropped some things, or I've done some things, and I shared with intent for it to cause harm or to push a narrative, that is disinformation. So the difference between misinformation and disinformation is the intent. I mean, so once you intentionally misinform people, that is disinformation. You understand? And the reason it's important for us to delineate what the two are is that it helps us actually understand the problem better, and then we can focus on the problem, on the solutions to those two things.
Interesting. Thank you for that perspective, David. That means both disinformation and misinformation all falls under the category of fake news, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can call it. You can essentially call it that. Yes, exactly.
All right, that's great. So, in the poll, we saw some people say, "E no concern me." What message do you have for those people?
Well, my message to anybody out there who thinks that misinformation and disinformation is not their business is that they should think about it again. Because even if you think that you are a critical thinker, you have media literacy skills, remember that you have family members, remember that you have friends, remember you have colleagues, you have, you don't live alone. You're not an island in this world. I think specifically, and I can say this authoritatively, that misinformation and disinformation affects everybody and everyone. Remember that they say no concern you. If one day they start spreading some false rumor about Hausas against Igbos or ethnic rumors, and before you know it, a crisis erupts, and it's no concern you, no concern you. It will concern you one day. Do you understand? So it's and the reason why we need to actually have an active conversation about misinformation and disinformation, particularly in a democracy like Nigeria, where we are multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multilingual country, is that if you're not careful, Nigeria may be one piece of misinformation or disinformation away from a breakup or from a serious crisis. So if you say no concern you, my brother, my sister, last it concern you, but because when the bege happen, when the misinformation and disinformation cause bege, now all of us go enter ammo.
Absolutely. How true. I mean, there is no better way to put that information than that. I really do appreciate it, and I'm pretty sure people have seen the reason why fake news should concern them. Let's talk about recommendations quickly from the hands of individuals, which we've already mentioned, media outlets, which involves the traditional and new media, and the government as well, because sometimes people think the government is exaggerating when it comes to fake news because people don't have trust. There's an erosion of trust with the government. So people feel when the government says this is fake news, they were like, fake news, people have started again, Abi. So talk to us, recommendations, the way forward.
Well, I would start with this illustration. So, disinformation itself is like a hydra-headed problem. So it's not just a problem that you can just cut away the head and everything goes away and you can go to bed. No. So it's a hydra-headed problem. So there's no silver bullet to it. So whatever solution you are thinking about or preferring has to involve almost everybody. In fact, all the stakeholders that you put in your poll. And I'll start with you and I, everybody, everyday people. First and foremost, people must have the media literacy skills to identify what misinformation and disinformation is. And if when somebody's to spot fake news, let's not put it that way. Because if they don't have the media literacy skills, for example, to do a Google reverse image search to show that a particular picture has been photoshopped, or it has been used before, or it has been used out of context, or it has been manipulated, or it has been fabricated. Somebody puts a CNN logo or Silverbird logo somewhere and just puts a text on the lower bar that says this is happening somewhere, Silverbird is reporting it. And then there are ways you can actually verify that. So we think that if Nigerians have the media literacy skills to actually verify information by themselves, that would be the first step. Then the next step would be you and I, the journalists. Because, like I said, the domain of misinformation and disinformation, apart from social media, is the media itself. And I can tell you categorically that even we journalists have inadvertently become conduits for misinformation and disinformation. And the only way to do that is to have the kind of training that we do at Africa Check, where we actually teach journalists in newsrooms skills, digital skills, using open source internet tools to actually verify news before they post, before they share, before they broadcast. So I think that journalists need to have that. So, I mean, it's not a post-truth era in the era of media, for me, in the media space. It's a post-trust era where people actually don't trust the media anymore. And for us to go back to a place where people can trust us when we say something, is that we have to now go back to the days of factual, evidence-based reporting and media coverage. We have to go beyond just one person says this. If somebody is passing off an opinion as facts, you have to verify and interrogate that. That's the only way we can get the trust back, by going back to our evidence-based factual reporting and by doing fact-checking and verification. So that's for the journalists. Now, for the government, like I said, I mean, it's a solution that we are not, at Africa Check, and I'm sure that other fact checkers have shared this sentiment. We do not believe in government censorship at any point. We do not believe that one legislation will just suddenly stop misinformation and disinformation in Nigeria. I personally don't think so. And because we've seen examples in China, in other ecosystems. We've seen examples in China, for example, at other places where government actually clamped down, sanctions and things like that. But what happened? What we saw is that people in those countries actually look for other ways to communicate, back channels and things like that. And then we saw that the disinformation and misinformation were still spreading in those channels. So that's one of my challenges. My other challenge is that to actually say, that do we think that government understands the problem enough to actually, do anything about it?
Absolutely, David.
Because if you understand, like you and I are talking now, we know that media literacy is the first thing. The people who are consuming news are the first people you should inoculate against fake news. So I am very,
Yes, thank you. I mean, the bane of what you have said so far. People should learn to verify information before they share, because it might come back one day to haunt them. I wish we had more time to continue with this discussion, but I want to say thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Tech Hub to break it down for us and make us understand that indeed fake news hurts everybody and anyone at any point in time. You've been an awesome expert analyst at this particular edition of Tech Hub. Thank you so much for joining us, David Ajikobi, Nigerian Editor at Africa Check. I hope we'll have you again on Tech Hub.
Thank you.